Welcome to another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Of course, I'm your host, JJ Kitchen. Guys, another Sunday conversation is here, the weekly live stream that we do. Again, the show is great because of you guys and the amount of comments that I've gotten in DMs this week. And I just had to bring it up before we get into the topics of the show and the sponsor of the show. It was so cool and so many great conversations and direct messages I had on Twitter. Whether it's from Pitt football parents, actual fans of the show. And it was pretty cool. It was down at Jason Aldean's bar over the weekend, just yesterday. And, last night being able to meet up with some people and it was pretty cool to have people come up and just say, hey, I watched the show. I love what you're doing. I always love those interactions. They're always so cool. And you talk about Pitt football and it's been pretty cool and unique. So I just wanted to thank all you guys and I'm so appreciative of what you guys do to support the channel. And again, if you haven't already, go ahead onto YouTube. If you're on X or Twitter, whatever you call it now, go ahead onto Twitter or go ahead onto YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share with your friends. And again, it's so incredible how much this Sunday conversation has grown from when we first started. So again, I dropped some player interviews from last year between Jake Cradle, Blake Zubovic, and obviously Marquez Williams, just to show a throwback. It was so cool to post those. The interviews with Marquez Williams and Jake Cradle and all those guys, if you missed those from last year, you can certainly go on the channel. Whenever you subscribe, go on the channel, take a look at it, get your thoughts. But more importantly, I love to hear the conversation from you guys. So again, I just can't appreciate you guys enough for what you do for the channel. This is so much fun. For me, this is a hobby outside of my day job. But let me tell you something. I love interacting with you guys, and the channel has grown insurmountably because of you guys and the Pitt football parents. And I appreciate all the comments and the direct messages and truly appreciate everything you guys do. But as we get into it here, guys, the sponsor of the show, okay, is Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. Guys, of course, Colonial Beer, which has been the sponsor for so long for us now. Incredible place, whether it's when you want light beers or heavy lagers or IPAs. But more importantly, the Fake Slide Pilsner, which helps support the players and supports Alliance 412, which is the preferred collective of the University of Pittsburgh. Again, guys, the Fake Slide, again, I talk about all the time. It's so cool to see the can, just the design on it, everything. But more importantly, go ahead over to Colonial Beer to pick this up. It's still the best of the best. And of course, it helps support the players. And supporting the players, but more importantly, Alliance 412, which is the preferred collective of the University of Pittsburgh. And again, guys, what Alliance 412 is doing right now is pretty crazy. It's been great to get the Colonial Beer. Obviously, it was up there a couple weeks ago just to show up, get to meet people. Obviously, I was wearing the old school colors and the old school uniforms. I call it the 2009, 2010 years of Jason Pinkston, Doran Dickerson, Dave Wanstead era. It was really cool to show up and be wearing old school stuff for once, but it's okay. I got our annual and our real tradition and our real colors on today. So again, guys, before we get into it here, going to check out some of the comments here. Of course, first and always in here first, WWR Pitt. Smash the like button, please. Hit the like button and subscribe. Cruce Brookins, we are certainly going to be talking about him, and I have a video to show you, obviously, from the press conference from Pat Narduzzi. I'll be putting it up on live here just to hear some of his comments. I wanted to get you guys some of those comments of how big it is. And I'm not going to be shocked if Cruce Brookins is one of the starting safeties, a guy that's very quickly earning respect already. You saw towards the end of the year what he looked like. He started earning more respect. Now it's on top of, we're really going to be looking at a guy that maybe, your two starting safeties will be Javon McIntyre and Cruce Brookins. I mean, that's something else. A redshirt freshman, of course, hometown hero from Steel Valley. We'll be getting into that tonight, but the offense has been showing up. The quarterback play, a little bit inconsistent here and there from what I've been hearing, but obviously it's only the first 3 days of camp. Obviously, Pitt is now on spring break. We'll continue to see what that looks like. But of course, we'll be getting into Cruce Brookins. I wanted to talk about him, just how good he's been. Significant playing time. Yep. Let me see what else we got here. Big question. Are all the wide receivers taught the whole route tree? That's a good question. And I promise you they are. Adam, I'm ready to hear about the offense. Amen, man. And again, before we get into more of the comments, guys, just going over here, just a couple things. One, as we talked about, the first thing I wanted to talk about is Cruce Brookins. Okay, and you saw the Pat Narduzzi press conference. If you guys didn't, I'm going to be pulling it up here in roughly about a minute or so. It's finally starting to load completely. Wanted to show you guys a quick glimpse of what Pat Narduzzi said. And sometimes I think it's better to just show you guys exactly what he said, so you guys can see everything from a point and an advantage point of what he said. And man, Pat really looked like he was really, very confident in Cruce Brookins. And again, he's been a guy that turned it on towards the end of last year, got to see more playing time. This is a guy that's definitely going to be getting more playing time this year. But as we dive into it here, let me pull this up here. Obviously, before we get into it here, let's see here. All right, you guys can definitely see that there. All right, let's see what Pat Narduzzi has to say about Cruce Brookins.
Cruce Brookins is a dude now. I mean, he's going to be a really good player. We saw that at the end of the year. He started getting in and playing. He's smart. He understands defense, and he plays with an attitude. I mean, he's a guy that you're going to see a lot of football, next fall for sure.
I got my money on Cruce. What kind of stuff he's shown you as far as just raw toughness that makes him so competitive?
He's competitive. He's smart, and he's physical. He's a football player. Again, not to take anything away from our coaches, but he's got a lot of innate skills that he was his mom and dad gave him growing up, I guess. I mean, he's a football player. And there's some guys that are great athletes and they're not great football players. You got to teach them how to be a great football player. He's a guy that's a great athlete that's also a really good football player, and he plays like for a young guy.
With this week of spring practice over with, which position group or area of the team do you think has made the biggest jump since the fall?
Sure. I would say just the position. I would say our offense, based on how they're playing, what they're doing, and the different attitude in those rooms. I would just pick that offense unit. Defense is the same as far as what we're doing. You got tweaks here and there defensively, but I would say the offense and just the attitude, just the overall feeling that you get out of that room right now. In what they showed on the field today, fighting back. There were some things they did against it. Our defense, that doesn't normally happen. Now, as a head coach, you're going, okay, is our defense bad?
All right, and just to give you, I gave you a little bit more of a glimpse there too. But Pat Narduzzi talking about in that section right there in that clip, Cruce Brookins, a guy that's really showed up here in the spring. It's only been 3 practices so far. So to get that kind of praise is always good to see. To be also one of the things I loved what he talked about is he's a football guy. There's a lot of athletic guys that can go on the field and they can play multiple sports and what they're able to do. But sometimes you got to be able to teach those guys how to play the game, especially football IQ. Cruce Brookins out of Steel Valley, hometown hero, a guy that just continues to shock and really earn respect. And when you get, praise like that from Pat Narduzzi in a press conference where you start to have those conversations like, man, this is going to be a guy. He's a dude. He's a dude. And usually when we see, and especially early on in the spring camp, when Pat Narduzzi talks about a guy early on like this, he's a guy that's going to see playing time. And I'm not shocked. I wouldn't be shocked to see Cruce Brookins take that starting job alongside Javon McIntyre. I think Javon McIntyre has really developed himself into one of the guys that's going to be playing the field safety position, what Eric Howard had played, what DeMar Hamlin had played. I think Javon McIntyre has done a great job at that. But also, too, Cruce Brookins will be a guy that rotates in if he doesn't get the starting position. Obviously, you have Donovan McMillan, who had a hell of a year last year. I think when you look at Donovan McMillan, what he was able to do, over 100 tackles, the best season he's had so far in college football, a very eye-opening experience, especially, too, when it comes to what it potentially looks like for the National Football League in a couple of years. I've spoken on Donovan McMillan. I've talked about him numerous times. Obviously, I know his family. His dad was my defensive coordinator at Mount Lebanon. So I have a relationship there and just really good football coach. He's a good football coach. Donovan McMillan was obviously a wrestler in high school. He's a good football player. So that's another great safety. But for a guy like Cruce Brookins, man, a redshirt freshman, really turned it on like you heard Pat Narduzzi talked about at the end of the year. It's incredible to hear that the quick development. And I think there has to be more of a conversation that's said, Corey Sanders, we talk about, a lot of the coaching staff, obviously, Charlie Parcher's a guy who was here, now gone off to the National Football League with the Indianapolis Colts. But the amount of coaching and the amount of development that has happened with Archie Collins and Corey Sanders on the back end of that defense is sometimes, not stated enough. And I think that the development that is clearly there, Cruce Brookins obviously has the athletic ability. People, overlooked him. People had so many questions about Cruce Brookins in terms of, is he just a hometown guy? Is another 3-star that Pat Narduzzi's going to take that doesn't fizzle out, that doesn't make it? Clearly not. Cruce Brookins is a guy that had talent, and it was funny, Carlos Zovko was another guy that always said that Cruce had a talent, plenty of talent, very physical. And you talk about that football guy. He has that physicality to him, to what you're looking for in this defense, and to play in this defense consistently and playing multiple downs in a row. You need guys who, one, know the assignment, especially in this defense. You're playing quarters defense. You guys saw Marquez Williams today tweet out, hey, Pitt DBs don't shy away from nobody. They're playing quarters defense. They're on an island. Everybody's on an island. You're on your own. And if you're able to play in this defense, you can play in the National Football League. So, one, you got to be able to know your assignment and know exactly where you need to be, especially in terms of alignment and knowing the responsibilities of what you're supposed to do, but also the people in front of you. But then more importantly, after that, the physicality aspect of it. What are you able to bring to the table? What are you able to show on a day-to-day basis, consistency-wise, of how you can be productive in this defense, but more importantly, going into the season and having trust from the staff? Clearly, Cruce Brookins has that intangible to where the trust is there. A guy just, again, so young. And, you look at as a redshirt freshman, a guy that's turning it on like he did, as a true freshman like he did during the season. But to really just build on it, you love to see it. And especially, too, what they're bringing to the table. So Cruce Brookins is a guy to watch consistently. You'll have, again, Javon McIntyre, Donovan McMillan, Cruce Brookins. He talked about Jesse Anderson later on and the later on clips. Jesse Anderson's a guy to watch out for. He's a guy that, they just really just keeping him in terms of alignment. He's still learning a bunch of things to where he stays in alignment to what he's able to prove on a day-to-day basis. But you got P.J. O'Brien back there. Shadarian Harrison's back there. I think if you have, Javon McIntyre, P.J. O'Brien, Donovan McMillan, and Cruce Brookins, and a Jesse Anderson back there, maybe you're able to move a Shadarian Harrison to a guy from a safety position to the corner position. Because obviously Pat Narduzzi talked about Rylan Gandy and his, just coming up from a great family in terms of, there was never any complaining. The guy always loves to compete. Rylan Gandy was a guy that always wanted to compete, always wanted to be at Pitt, stayed at Pitt, never considered leaving. Now is his time. And in the cornerback position, you got Taman Lynham, the transfer cornerback from Nebraska, which is going to be a great addition. I see him getting early playing time really early on. He'll be one of those guys, Rylan Gandy, Tamarian Crumpley. You've got Rashad Battle. Now maybe even potentially Shadarian Harrison. So when you're looking overall in the cornerback room and even just the DB room, what might have thought would have been lacking in depth because of guys that we lost, A.J. Woods, Marquez Williams, and, of course, M.J. Devonshire, there's guys with potential there. And, again, you look at it from a double-edged sword to say, hey, we'll see what it looks like come fall whenever we have week 2 when you're going to Cincinnati, or week 3 when it's at home in the backyard brawl versus West Virginia. We'll continue to see and monitor that. But this is a positive development that early on in spring, there's clearly guys in that defense that you say, hey, it's clicking, it's going. Because now, if it's starting to click now, they're learning at a rapid pace at this point. When fall happens and now you're in fall camp, you finally have that addition to where it's no longer thinking, it's secondary nature, and you're playing fast. And when you're playing fast in this defense and you're not thinking, you're productive, and you're going to be a hell of a player. We've seen it in numerous instances, especially on the back end, whether it's, a Jason Pinnock, M.J. Devonshire, Marquez Williams, Dane Jackson, Damar Hamlin, Paris Ford. I mean, just, Eric Hallett. There's so many different guys. Jordan Whitehead. There's so many different examples that, in Pat Narduzzi's time at Pitt and with Archie Collins and Corey Sanders, even back then with Ronaldo Hill, in this defense, if you can play in this defense, you can play in the National Football League, and you're going to get drafted to the National Football League if you can perfect this defense and play at this level. So it's going to be something to watch. Cruce Brookins, man, I am so happy for him because, one, he's a hometown kid. We've had plenty of discussions about what the recruiting looks like in the WPIAL. And again, I have my own thoughts on it. Pitt's never going to land every single prospect. I think people get really carried away with that. I think Pitt does a great job in terms of finding talent that fits their defense, finding guys who are actually really good, whether it's in Florida or in the WPIAL. You see numerous different guys And again, I think the whip is important to Pitt with a number of different guys, but is Pitt going to land every single guy? No. Is it going to be the make or break of everything at Pitt? No. They're going to do a good job regardless. They'll get the guys they need to get in the backyard, be able to battle with a couple other guys that are back there. But guess what? You still have other states where they've really developed a great relationship in the Carolinas, in Virginia, in Georgia, which has taken a while. But finally, these last 3 or 4 years, you've seen a lot of stuff pay off and the guys that come up here. And, of course, Florida, which plenty of people, for instance, Cade Bell is going to be certainly dipping into that area. A wealth of knowledge down there, plenty of relationships that he has down there. Lindsey Lamar, another guy who's got plenty of connections down there, especially in the Virginia area, in the D.C. area. There's a lot of things to like. But, man, I am excited for Cruce Brookins, man, a hometown hero kid. That's what you want to see. You want to see the young guys, and especially, too, hometown guys really perform. And when you play at Pitt as a hometown kid, you're going to get every opportunity in the world because you're a hometown kid and you know exactly what you're looking at. You're going to be tough. You're from Pittsburgh. You played in the Whippeal. It's no joke. It doesn't matter where you play at, what division. I mean, hell, go look at Aliquippa and see how those guys are. They're going to be in 5A this year, and don't be surprised when they win a Whippeal title again this year. Now, let's go to some of the comments here. So I told you guys I would get to some of the comments. Excited to hear about Cruce Brookins again. Yep. Guys, it's going to be really big. I'm excited for him. And again, guys, if you're on here, if you're on X, head on over to YouTube, subscribe to the channel. We're almost to 1,000 subscribers. It's been incredible. I think we're down to, 35 subscribers left. Guys, if you have not subscribed to the channel, subscribe now. It takes 2 seconds. Just go ahead down there, hit the subscribe button. It might be right over here. Hit the subscribe button, like it, and share it with your friends. And luckily enough, we got 163 people in here now. Again, appreciative for all you guys. The show is great because of you. And again, the Sunday conversation has always been a hit. Ready to hear about the offense? We'll get into that. Big question: are all the wide receivers getting taught the route tree? Yes. In this in this offense, yes. And I think, when you look at a guy like J.J. Laster, who has come on wide receiver coach of the year in the FCS, earned him a promotion to Old Dominion for a couple weeks. Again, I talked to enough people to where, especially graduate assistants and people that I talked to, one position coach on the team at Old Dominion. First thing he said, J.J. Laster was a guy that came in and talked about the recruiting board and bumping up recruiting. A guy that has plenty of relationships. When you look at overall, when I talked to former players and wide receivers who were at Western Carolina, the first thing they said was he's a guy that teaches the techniques and pushing guys. And I don't know if you guys saw, but obviously I posted a video on Twitter or X about J.J. Laster talking to the media about, hey, I'm going to push these guys extremely hard. And I'm going to push these guys because I love them. Life's not easy. Life is hard. But it's about reaching the standard of what our offense is going to be and what it means to be a Pitt Panther. And, again, I love Taekwon Underwood, but I think maybe that was something that was lacking. I think that, J.J. Laster was a guy, he's going to push. He's going to push these guys. He's going to coach these guys. He's going to coach them hard and love them even harder. I just think it's a great relationship to have. And from everything that I've heard from the wide receiver room is that they love this guy. And there's a great relationship and a bond being built. The same thing with the offensive line room. The offensive line room with Jeremy Darveau, our guy that's very high tempo, very big in terms of stature, but a lot of energy that he brings. Lindsey Lamar, you heard Rodney Hammond this week talk about how this has been the hardest he's ever been coached in terms of knowledge, his assignment, where he needs to be. That in terms of his goals, maybe here, Lindsey wants him up here. You got to love that kind of stuff. You got to be able to look at it and say, man, that's some really good stuff in terms of these young coaches who are 30 under 30, FCS coach of the year, special teams coordinator of the year. There's another video out this week, a new special teams drill that they run right in the beginning of practice. The media got to actually watch it this week. And you just saw the competition. Marquez Williams tweeted about it and said, man, if we were ever doing this drill, we would be getting after each other and telling them, we'd be ending you. But that's what you want. You want competition at every position. You want competition at every single form of football. Offense, all three phases, offense, defense, and special teams. That's when you're going to start to see this team, which has the talent to really succeed in this division, in this conference, go from that 3-9, which was a fluke, and show it was a fluke, to a team that can win 9, 10, 11 games consistently. The talent is there. I went into this, fall camp where you have talent. You have different aspects of, hey, each position, what we're looking at. We fill gaps within the transfer portal, what we're able to do. And, when you look at the wide receiver room, for example, they brought in C.J. Lee and Raphael Poppy Williams, two guys that played at Western Carolina. Obviously, Raphael Williams went to San Diego State for a year, sat out because of transfer rules. He comes back now to Pitt to work with Cade Bell because of the offense and the system that he was in. I think when you look at this wide receiver room, you have guys that I think have the talent. Kenny Johnson, again, the guy that's now and in the future, he's going to be a stud for years to come. He's going to be a massive impact on this wide receiver room. Kanate Mumfield, I've been saying it for 2 or 3 years. Now that we're out of the Walsh era of the 1980 offense, West Coast offense, where everything's slow and monotonous and just almost like it's just watching glue. Those days are over. This is very much in terms of what this offense looks like. They've bought into the system where it's up tempo. They're moving. There's no questions being asked or being told what to do, and they're doing it, and they're showing it. And just in that clip that I showed you guys there with Pat Narduzzi, the first thing that, the question was, what has changed in terms of this team? What have you seen the difference of from the last fall? And it was an undoubtedly look at, hey, it's our offense and the attitude that's been brought here. Cade Bell, a younger guy. I think one of the things that Pitt fans is, and you guys can maybe tell me I'm wrong, but one of the things was we needed to get younger. We needed a youth movement on this coaching staff. And Pat Narduzzi achieved that. He went out and got a guy that's 30 years old, worked with his dad at Western Carolina, but showed results. I posted videos with especially in terms of just the creativeness when he was at Georgia Tech, when they faced Georgia Tech. It was roughly the first game of the year, non-conference game. You see the creativeness, you see the NFL concepts, but also too that Steve Spurrier type of spread offense to where you have the speed. So it's modern day football. You're catching people off guard. You're being able to create mismatches. You're going to see more of Gavin Bartholomew this year. The fact that, there will never be a game where he doesn't have a target, like when it was against Notre Dame, which in my mind, how the hell that happens, how the guy like that, who's possibly your best player on offense, doesn't get a target. I don't care if he's being triple coveraged. You find a way to get that guy open. It doesn't matter. There's no ands or ors or buts about it. You find a way. And if you can't find a way, you shouldn't be the offensive coordinator. It's that simple. And that's why Frank Cignetti is no longer here. And there's a reason why Cade Bell, a youth movement, him, Lindsey Lamar, J.J. Laster, Jeremy Darveau, even a younger guy in his 40s, younger. You're looking overall, I think that this team and this staff, and of course, Jacob Bronowski, special teams coordinator of the year at Miami of Ohio. I know for a fact he had Power 5 offers. He was being interviewed. He was being looked at. He was a guy that was very much well-liked. I know for a fact that people even said that he was a guy that's going to be a future star in this league, along with J.J. Laster, 2 other guys. You look at those 2 guys, I think we did a really good job of finding a way to get more people involved. I think these guys are younger, still more to prove, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel that says maybe we have something here. And I think Pitt fans can just continue to support it and to say, hey, we have a potential to really change this season around, what's coming up in terms of this fall, because of how fast this stuff has been just being put in, how fast they're learning. Before camp even started, they were 50% install already in. And now you're teaching it to where the offense is now being come to the point where speed, make the mistakes now, as J.J. Laster said, make the mistakes now. We'll teach you in the classroom, but make them doing it fast. Okay, so on the field, make the mistakes on the field. We'll coach it up in the classroom, but we want these guys to learn the tempo of going, because they're so used to going slow and monotonous and looking like glue that this needed to change, and it's clearly the emphasis of spring ball. When fall camp comes, they'll have the tempo down, and then you really change things up to make sure all the assignments are correct. Right now, it's understanding speed, and speed. Get the tempo down, move the football, catch people off guard, and create mismatches and be where you're supposed to be. And then we'll work and fine tune other portions of the areas where, for instance, J.J. Laster talked about how these wide receivers, you got Kenny Johnson, Kanate Mumfield, who's going to be a stud this year. I think he's going to do it because the offense finally fits him. Dejon Reynolds, a guy who's very good in traffic, a guy who catches the ball if it's in his area, especially when he's in traffic. He showed it numerous times last year. You've got those 3, obviously C.J. Lee, Raphael Poppy Williams. You've got still Lamar Seymour, Izzy Polk, Zion Fowler. Look at some of the tape that he has put out. The one-handed catches. I think you see the frame and the body work in terms of what he has done with work to what he looks like. I think he's done a hell of a job from what fall ball has looked like during the fall season to where we are in spring. The body looks great. Now he's starting to show it in practice where he's in coverage and he's making one-handed catches. You love to see that because these wide receivers, it's going to be 3, 4, 5, 6 guys going into the game because guess what? They're moving at a fast pace and you want fresh guys. But to get enough fresh guys in there, they got to know what the hell they're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to get in. And as Lindsey Lamar said to the running backs, no block, no rock. So know your blocking assignments, pick up your pass protections, but more importantly, be aggressive in everything that you do while you're on the field. Again, guys, if you haven't already and you're on X or you're on Twitter or you're on YouTube watching, subscribe to the channel down below. Again, appreciate everything you guys do for the channel. Again, we're almost to 1,000 subscribers. Subscribe to the channel now because we're almost there. And, of course, the Sunday Conversation is every week. And we have daily discussions, but more importantly, the Sunday Conversation is the interactions I get to have with you guys, which is why I do what I do. This is why I love to do this. It's been a hell of a hobby, and I always love all the questions. And speaking of questions, let's get into a couple more here. Wide receivers here, and maybe talk about the 25 recruits confirming official visits. Yeah, that's going to be another conversation we talk about. Can you elaborate on the new purpose early signing period? So this is another one that was, really brought up, and Pat Narduzzi talked about it in terms of what this looks like for the coaches. The coaching schedule is just out of whack. It is completely just monotonously just the schedule was hard enough. But obviously, if the people don't know, the recruiting period and the signing period got moved up even more and is now on the Wednesday before the AC championship game. So now if you're now coaching and you're playing in the AC championship game as a coach on a Wednesday, you're now having signing period during the week while you're preparing for the ACC championship game. That's absolutely asinine. Asinine. It's absolutely wild to think about when you look at this from a perspective of these coaches have enough to worry about during the season and what you have to do on a day-to-day basis. But now you're going to have signing day, calling players. Then you're going to have a media outlet conversation talking about recruits. Who did you sign? Why did you like what you signed? Overall, you're spending really a whole day talking about who you signed. You're losing a day where you need to have practice. Especially, too, if you have an early practice early on, you want to early practice early, you can't do that because you have signing day. I just think that the NCAA has done a horrific job in what they've done consistently, which is make things tougher on the student athletes and make things tougher on the coaches, which is another reason why the Big Ten, the SEC, continually try to now separate from the NCAA, which I'm sorry to tell this to you guys, but it's going to happen. The question is what happens with the ACC and the Big 12. I've said it for a while now, there's so much going on in college athletics to where there's just a complete shuffle with conference realignment, what it looks like. I think that the ACC, in terms of what they need to do, I think Commissioner Jim Phillips needs to be a lot more aggressive. I think he's done a really bad job overall. I think he's been playing reactive. When you look at guys like the SEC and Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, Greg Sankey worries about what helps the SEC. Tony Petitti, who is the commissioner of the Big Ten, he worries about what helps the Big Ten. That's why the Big Ten and the SEC have really created an alliance. And the ACC needs to get aggressive and start figuring things out. Obviously, there's other questions, and we won't go down that road tonight with other questions, obviously, that we have in terms of, Pitt football. But the ESPN potentially opting out of their last deal. I'll be having a video drop later on about how I think Apple, from things I've heard, Apple, who is obviously owned by Tim Cook, he's now the CEO, obviously, and he's a Duke alum, has talked about getting involved in college athletics. From what I've been told, if ESPN does drop and officially opt out, ESPN has talked about creating where they have a third of the deal, and then you have also the CW and potentially Apple and maybe even Fox jump on board to where you have a numerous amounts of people like the Big Ten where they have NBC, CBS, Fox. They have all three of those on there. You look at the SEC, which obviously just has ESPN, just like the ACC, but the Big 12 has Fox and ESPN. ESPN has the majority of the Big 12, but then right now they still have Fox in there. So what I've been really told is that Apple's looking to get really involved. If they opt out, Apple could offer a lot of money in terms of what they can do with the ACC, because obviously Tim Cook is a Duke alum, wants to get involved. That's why he tried getting involved with the Pac-12. The Pac-12 didn't like the deal. it is what it is. The Pac-12 deal was way gone before all that even happened. But if you had a streaming platform like Apple TV, you had a national televised cable provider in terms of what the CW can put on basic cables. You have streaming and cable, and then potentially ESPN, so they can keep and get a hold of the ACC network in terms of distribution. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I think the ACC can survive because there's a lot of schools collectively with the mindset of just staying together. And that new deal comes together, then you start having conversations about the ACC going after West Virginia and the Big 12, because the Big 12 continues to go west. They want the ACC to fail because they need to add teams, because the ACC has better brands than the Big 12 does. I know my Big 12 people that are watching this aren't going to like that. Luckily, I don't care. The Big 12 does not have better brands than the ACC. The ACC has bigger brands. Duke, North Carolina, Miami, Clemson, Florida State. Okay, even if Florida State and Clemson leave, you still have other schools that are potentially in there, along with the markets that they're in. I mean, just the markets and TV sets. No one has more TV sets in the cities that the currently teams play at than the ACC, because it's in all major markets, top 30 markets, top 25 markets. It is what it is. But it's a fact of, hey, there's a lot of things going on in college athletics, and I know I went down a little bit too far. I know we're going to get back on track here in a second, but again, there's so much going on in college athletics, and from what I'm talking about with people and why it's important to support Alliance 412, which is why, I love, helping them out and just, being able to talk about what I know behind the scenes when I talk to other collectives and I talk to other universities. It's important to support Alliance 412 because that's what's going to keep us competitive. And guess what? It's almost like that transition gap, because guess what? The players are going to be employees in a couple of years, to where all the money then goes to the universities. The NIL collectives will help the universities, where the money just goes directly to the athletes from each university. But you need to have a 2-year gap where you got to survive. And right now, this is our opportunity to survive. We're in a top 30 market. We are a well-respected brand. We are a very, very, very good brand, not to the echelon of like a UNC or North Carolina or like a Miami in terms of like football and things of that nature, and Clemson. But Pitt is a hell of a brand. But when you back up and you get behind a collective like Alliance 412 and Chris Bickle and major guys like David Tepper and Mark Cuban, who have actually donated to Pitt and continue to donate to Pitt, it's so important to stay involved in this stuff and to continue to support Alliance 412. That's why I put my stuff out there, and that's why I continue to support it. And that's why I am a subscriber to Alliance 412, just to do my part. But we'll get back on track. Which wide receiver has looked the best so far? Fowler made some sick catches. Yeah, Wolf. One of the things that's been very noticeable with this wide receiver room, you know what you got, okay? A lot of these guys in terms of, Konate Mumfield, he's a tremendous route runner. I think this offense is going to be so good to where finally we get to utilize his skills and finally put him in a position where we're able to create mismatches, use his route running ability and his speed to get away from defenders and really create opportunities to get him the football. Kenny Johnson has continued to improve. I think that's really, really good. I think when you continue to watch Kenny Johnson develop, he is just a future. That's why it was so good to see him come back and Alliance 412 take care of that. But also, too, Dejon Reynolds continues to show. But Zion Fowler, man, he is moving. He is moving and creating plays. Again, you talked about the videos. The videos are crucial and important to what they look like. They continue to show great plays, one-handed catches in traffic. He's also showed speed. Pat Narduzzi also talked about this week how Raphael Poppy Williams, another guy who continues to show great progress, a guy that has shown speed. And again, he talked about how just in general, the team looks faster in general. But so does the wide receiver room. C.J. Lee, a guy that continually looks good. I think those guys will be able to rotate in quite a bit with Kenny Johnson, Konate Mumfield, Dejon Reynolds. Zion Fowler is going to certainly get his looks as he continues to go into the fall, especially if he keeps playing like the way he is right now. That's another thing. I think when you look at a guy like Izzy Polk's got a lot of potential. Lamar Seymour continues to show up day in and day out and be consistent. He's still building it in terms of knowledge of the offense, just like everybody else is. We'll continue to see what that looks like. But you're watching from a live perspective of these guys are getting better each week. And then we'll see what it looks like. Really, in my case, where week 1, you're going to have Kent State. I'm not going to learn anything from Kent State. You're not going to learn anything from Kent State. You're going to learn what type of football team this is when it goes on the road to face old Big East rival and a rival to us, because I've been a fan since, early 2000s, like a lot of you have who have been older fans than that, the 90s, the 80s. Cincinnati is a rival to us. I don't care what anybody says. Maybe not in the level of obviously West Virginia and Penn State, but Cincinnati's a rival. I was at that game last year at home. They are a rival to us. And again, like I told a bunch of people there, I'll be going on the road to that game to watch that game. Obviously, Cincinnati plays in a much smaller stadium than obviously Pitt. Pitt has 70,000 seats. Obviously, I think Cincinnati has 36,000 seats. So it's a pipsqueak stadium compared to everywhere else, which was why I kind of thought it was funny for them to talk about attendance when you're playing in a high school stadium. But be that as may, I guess. But overall, it is really, really good to see how this room continues to look. But even the running back room, go look at Rodney Hammond, Desmond Reed. These two guys, back and forth, really good ball players. Go look at Derek Davis. Lindsey Lamar talked about Derek Davis. He's really right now like the fastest guy on the team. Andre Powell, for how many times we talked about it, he's a power runner. He's a power runner. No, Andre, he's both a speed and power. He was a rated 5-star recruit who went to LSU of way of Gateway, obviously a hometown hero, because he is that good. He can be that good. But what takes that player that starts from here to here is coaching. And I think Pitt has that. And I can't wait to watch that room from a perspective of, man, this team has a lot of potential. Let's put it together and just show that last year was a blip on the radar and now it's back on track. Some more questions here. Seems like they're having fun on offense. Really nice to hear. Yes, and I think that's a big thing too. You love it because of that speed, but you're also having fun, so you're not thinking about it as much. You know the offense, you know what you need to do, and you consistently just build on it, and show why the offense is continuing to improve. And again, it has to do a lot with coaching. I am excited for guys like Jacob Bronowski, 30 under 30, special teams coordinator of the year at Miami of Ohio, but now tight end coach. Go look at these guys and talk to anybody. They're being coached, and they're being coached hard. Lindsey Lamar, running back, played running back at USF. Talked about how he never beat Pitt, but guess what? He knew Pitt was tough. In the old Big East days, you had to be tough. So he's a running back and a guy who was an offensive coordinator and wide receiver coach as well at Howard. If you're an offensive coordinator at any level in college football, you know what the hell you're doing, and you're a great coach. So he's another guy to watch. Jeremy Darveau, another guy to watch in terms of what development he's been able to do. 7 or 8 offensive linemen he's developed, even at the levels that he's been at in terms of FCS and FBS. And, of course, you have Cade Bell, which, again, I've talked to numerous people within the Florida connections, Jacksonville State connections. I've talked to him, and especially, too, down at Western Carolina. The players loved him, especially his offense and what it's able to put up. So it's something to watch consistently. I can't see Brookins starting over McMillan. That guy is going to be a superstar on the defense. Yeah, McMillan obviously is going to be a guy who's going to walk in as a starter. But at this point, like Narduzzi talks about, there's going to be a battle there. And there's going to be a battle with even Javon McIntyre. Maybe they mix it up in terms of how to get the best guys on the field. But overall, you look at that safety room, there's a lot of depth. And I think Donovan McMillan has a real opportunity to play in the National Football League if he builds off of what he did last year, which I certainly intend him to, because now he knows the defense. He's not thinking as much. Production is going to continue to build, but you got to see it on a consistent basis, where he did last year, but now let's take it to another level. And I expect him to do that because he certainly can do that. He has the physical attributes, and he has the football IQ to do it. So hopefully we continue to see it through the spring, but more importantly into the fall. And by week 2 against Cincinnati, and week 3 in the backyard brawl down here at Acrisure Stadium, we'll find out who the hell we have this year. He might come in on Delta. Yeah, good point. But not even on Delta, but also, too, rotation, keeping guys fresh. Pitt loves to do that, which is why I love how Pitt does that, where everyone's fresh on the D-line, linebackers, and DBs. And I like that. And it's early in spring football, and I know things will change, but right now, where do you think Pitt's roster ranks in the ACC? When it comes to the ACC, I think when you look at each individual roster, I'll really give you a more descriptive idea of what these rosters look like when I do my deep dive in the next couple of weeks, especially, too, when we start to wrap up spring ball, because like you said, things can change so quickly. Out of the 16 teams that are currently in the ACC, I have them on the upper half. I would say in terms of, really like 7 or 6. And that's kind of where I have it at this point. Obviously, I have Florida State above us. I've got Clemson above us, the two obvious ones. I think Miami certainly has a great roster, but they never put it together every year. Again, it's a big brand everyone likes to talk about, but there's a lot of stuff to improve on down there. And I've had numerous friends that have coached down there, and it's a lot of times the lights and glamour gets in front of those players, and it's less about football and more about the party life. I think Miami certainly has a roster. And look, I mean, anybody would be insane to say that Miami does not have a talented roster. They have a talented roster. It's whether they truly want to focus on football or they want to focus on going to practice because they have to and then going out to party. It's just a fact. They've got a great roster, but these guys got to put it together. And Mario Cristobal, while he's had success at other places, he has not had it at Miami yet. So until he shows it, I got him up there in terms of roster, but when it comes to success, then I have everything else chained around. Because I think some of these teams will have better successes than others because of coaching and I'll buy in from players. But then we'll get into that certainly too. Donovan Reed, it's so refreshing to listen to somebody with football knowledge. Love it. I appreciate it, Donovan. Again, man, I appreciate everything you guys do. More importantly, I appreciate you guys always tuning in. You've always been so supportive. And again, I appreciate everything you put on here. But more importantly, your support in general, man. I really do appreciate it. And so thankful for the support from you guys. And of course, if you have not done so yet, subscribe to the channel down below. We'll say that consistently throughout the show. We're almost to 1,000. Subscribe to the channel. You guys are the best. My guys, of course, the Fan Addict Sports Network. Time for tailgating with JJ Kitchen when you go to the games. I know, man, we got to do a tailgating scene. And that's been another aspect, too. I'm hoping to have something very soon in terms of whether it's here in the South Hills, maybe in South Fayette. We're still working on a live show in terms of, how we need to work that to make it work. If players can go to a distributor or things of that nature, obviously we're looking to do a live show from Colonial Beer. But also, too, I would like to have, during the offseason, a get-together for Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen subscribers. Whether it's a Permanis, like the large Permanis out here in Bridgeville, in South Fayette area. That place certainly holds a lot. I just love to meet you guys. I love to see people. I love to have the conversation. What do you guys want to see more? What do you want to see less of? What questions do you have? Why do you love Pitt football? When did you start watching Pitt football? What kind of questions do you have about college football in general? Where's the sport going? I truly embrace your guys' comments and ideas and thoughts. That kind of stuff really matters to me. That's why I love doing this. I love interacting, and why I love doing live shows, and why the Sunday Conversation has built to where it is. We have 256 people in this live stream right now. And again, I'm beyond thankful for it because, one, we have got such great people, but the interaction I get to have with you guys is what makes it fun. That's the truth. You guys make it fun, not me. You guys do. Mark, agree. Fan Addict Sports Network, we are lucky to have JJ. Mark, I appreciate it, man. Hopefully I get to, when my schedule finally slows down, hopefully get back on the Fan Addict Sports Network. Obviously, Coach I, the best over there. Obviously, Jason Watkins from the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast, another guy to watch out for. Those two guys are the best. You still think Eli will win the job? There's another great question, which kind of led me into this next one. So a great question from Adam here. I said it from the beginning that I would certainly have a dark horse in this quarterback race. And right now, obviously, Pat Narduzzi talked about this week. We're only 3 practices in, but Nate Yarnell is still the guy at this point. He's still leading the pack. But you saw, we talked about Christian Veyer, a guy who's competing. He talked about Eli Holstein. He's been about 95%. I think he pulled his hamstring about 4 or 5 weeks ago while during in the Pitt Ironworks, obviously, when they were running sprints or whatever, pulled a hamstring. But he's 95%, but he's tough. He's out there. Those 3 guys are competing. Ty Diffenbach, he called him a puppy still. He's still a young guy with a lot of talent. Julian Duggar has done some really good things in terms of camp. If you've seen the videos out there, and for me personally, just from talking to people, I think he's done a great job in terms of delivering the football. Has got good velocity on it. He's a lefty quarterback. Cade Bell is actually left-handed himself. So talk about Julian Duggar having a nice mentor there to where, especially working on quarterback mechanics and technique and footwork, a guy like Cade Bell can teach him that kind of stuff. I think that's huge. When you look at the quarterback room overall, I like the room. I think there's a lot of depth in that room. There's a lot of quarterbacks in that room. But I think if I had to sit here today and I had to pick a guy, I still think when it comes to the fall, and hey, you guys can come after me if I'm wrong. I will certainly live up to it and own it, like I did with Phil Dracovic. Don't even let me get on that road. That was a bad one. I still say that Eli Holstein will win the job because overall, when you look at the athletic ability and the arm strength and his football IQ, not saying Nate doesn't have football IQ, Nate did a hell of a job, and I think Nate is potentially the one or two on this roster. I just personally think it's right now, I think it's between Nate Yarnell and Eli Holstein. I think Eli Holstein will win the job when it comes to the fall. I think Christian Veyer, obviously, when you look at a football aspect of who throws the prettiest ball, Christian Veyer certainly gets that award. I mean, when the ball comes out of his hand, it's got great velocity. He's got a great deep ball. The spiral's tight. It looks good off his hand. But the one thing that concerns me about him, and I don't know if it's changed yet, is the turnovers have got to be limited. You need to have less turnovers. You saw it, for instance, in a game that was just in my mind, which will be a nightmare game. As I look back from Pitt now, there's been numerous games of this, but Syracuse game. I mean, one, the defense couldn't stop Syracuse with a tight end playing quarterback. Dan Valeri, obviously, we recruited him to come play quarterback here. He ended up going to Michigan to play quarterback, left Michigan to go to Syracuse, played quarterback for a year, then moved to tight end. That game, when you looked at overall, whether it's the Syracuse game or the Notre Dame game, you saw multiple turnovers. You saw the Wake Forest game where you could really had a potential to put the game away numerous times. We couldn't do it. That kind of stuff needs to change. I think he needs to get better at that. I think Nate Yarnell, in terms of just being consistent, he had plenty of great moments, especially against, towards the end of the year against you saw the Boston College game where he was able to really explode onto the scene, created great plays. But I think that he needs to create those opportunities more often, be more explosive on a daily basis. Eli Holstein, hey, he's a guy that, I've watched the Alabama tape. I've watched the practice tape. Obviously, when you're facing technically really the number one defense in college football, maybe besides Michigan, he did a hell of a job down there. I liked his mechanics. I know there's some people out there within CBS and whatnot that said, I don't know if he should be playing quarterback. Anybody that I've talked to has looked at quarterbacks, has said this kid has got the potential to be great. It's now giving him a shot. That's the biggest thing. And I think that, when you look at, they said, well, he was third or fourth on the depth chart at Alabama. Well, it's Alabama. I mean, you've got the best quarterbacks in the country all on the roster. So 1 or 4 on that is different. You might be the fourth guy on the depth chart or third on the depth chart, but you might be number 1 somewhere else in the SEC. Eli Holstein was wanted by Louisville. Louisville was a big component there. Purdue was a big component there. From what I was told, and this is funny to think about, but Eli Holstein would not pick up the phone for West Virginia. Just what I was told. West Virginia wanted Eli Holstein. Neil Brown wanted Holstein, but he wouldn't pick up the phone. So, there was already that tendency that he was already a pick guy to begin with. But he had other SEC offers as well. He was looked at a potential guy to come on and bring on a board in Ole Miss, and Auburn. So he had plenty of offers. He had plenty of places he could have gone. And if you think about Louisville, for instance, Jeff Brom, what he was able to do last year in his first year at Louisville, call it what it is. We beat them, obviously, but they still had a hell of a year. I think they still did a great job. What he was able to do with that football team after taking over for Scott Satterfield, who failed miserably, and losing to Cincinnati with Scott Satterfield is just a whole nother debacle that I had that just absolutely infuriated me. Cincinnati hired a guy that was really going to get fired from Louisville. I mean, anybody I talked to down there said if Cincinnati did not hire him, he was getting fired. So that's a whole nother thing after Luke Fickell left Cincinnati. But when you look overall, I just think that when you look at the quarterback room, I think Eli wins the job. I really do. There's just so many intangibles that he has. And his arm, I mean, I've seen the footage. I mean, holy hell. I mean, the guy throws at a country mile. I think his athletic ability is really good. He's 6'3", 6'4", runs a 4.5, 4.6 40. A guy that can move. He's got great agility, great football IQ. I think Nate Yarnell's got great football IQ. Certainly does have a good arm, but I think just a mobile in this offense, you want a guy that can move around, that can really move. If he needs to take off, he can take off. You really want that dual threat quarterback. And I think just Nate, I think he does move well for a guy that's 6'6", 6'7", but I just think he lacks it a little bit. That's just my opinion, but he's still a great quarterback. So it's going to come down to competition, and it will go through the spring, it'll go through the summer, and it'll go through the fall. We probably won't know who the starting quarterback is. With Pat Narduzzi, we'll probably know who it is probably week 3 or week 4 camp. Just how it always goes. Who do you think the starting corners will be next season? Jimmy, great question. If I had to say right now, the starting corners, which in Pitt's defense, they're going to play 4 corners anyways. They're always working guys in, which is preferably me, I think is a great idea because you got guys that are fresh the entire game, especially in Pitt's defense where it's you're playing quarters defense. You are on an island at all times. There's no questions being asked. You are on an island. You're on your own. You either hold your own or you're off the field. It's that simple. I think right now, as we sit here at 3 days of camp in spring, I'm going to go Taman Lynham, the Nebraska transfer, and I'm going to go Rylan Gandy. Those would be my 2 starting guys. And then I think you're going to have guys like for instance, Tamarian Crumpley. He'll be that 3rd guy that's back there. I think Shadarian Harrison's going to have something to say about that. I think Rashad Battle's going to have something to say about that. Rashad Battle has looked really physical, aggressive. I think Rashad Battle's been a guy that's, he knows the defense, certainly has the intangibles, but it's just staying healthy. And I feel bad for him sometimes because, one, he's shown the progression year in and year out. It's just staying healthy enough to stay on the field. So I think that the starting 2 corners, if they were to play a game tomorrow, would be Taman Lynham, which Lynham, man, he is a big dude. I mean, he is like 6'2" at least. I mean, I've seen him in person. I mean, good Lord. He reminds me of like a Jason Pinnock with like just freak athletic ability and speed. Clearly very aggressive. Wanted this style of defense to where it's not off press. It's quarters defense and you're in your face. Man press coverage. They're up in your grill. It's one-on-one, mano-a-mano, who's better. And guess what? If you can play in this defense, like I said before, if you can play in this defense, you're going to the National Football League. Call it what it is. They're going to get a shot. So I think those will probably be my 2. And then Tamarian Crumpley, Rashad Battle, Shadarian Harrison. Those guys are all back there. Noah Bigelow's another guy back there. He's done a great job from what I've heard. So you've got guys. The question is, when the lights come on a Saturday afternoon or a Saturday night, how do they look? We'll see what they look like when the fall season comes around. He was going against Alabama's number 1 defense. Yeah. And again, very good points. What people might be saying, well, it's practice. It's a good point. Not disagreeing with you. But at the same time, though, I've seen how Alabama practices. Alabama and Georgia are different. I can tell you that right now. I love Pitt. Alabama and Georgia are different. They are different dudes. Kirby Smart is a different dude. I have friends on that staff. I have friends on the Alabama staff. They are different dudes. Those practices are something else. Even Nebraska. I think Matt Rule has brought a different attitude to what they do at Nebraska. But Pitt's up there too because Pat Narduzzi loves to get physical. And he loves to hit in practice, which is why Pitt has built the name and the reputation of being tough because they love to hit. They love to be aggressive. These guys are constantly hitting in practice. I think it's another reason why. What skilled player, position player, do you think will be the most involved in Bell's new offense? This is a great question. And I think in Bell's offense, he utilizes guys that it's not just one guy, it's multiple guys. I think Gavin Bartholomew is going to get a lot of receptions and targets this year. I think he's going to get a lot of targets. I think Kanate Mumfield's going to get a lot of targets. I think Kenny Johnson's going to get a lot of targets. But also, too, they're not going to abandon the run. If I had to look at, running backs right now, obviously I love how Joel Goff came in. I think he's going to be a great running back, especially when it comes to the future. And there's other young running backs on that roster, too, obviously, that I like, too. I'm blanking on his name. I'm always blanking on his name last year. The freshman running back from last year who got a couple carries here and there. He's going to be really good, too. But I think you're really your 3 or 4 running backs. I think you're going to have Rodney Hammond, Desmond Reed, and Derek Davis. I think those 3 guys, I think with Desmond Reed's knowledge, his physical toughness, I look at like Desmond Reed as, I call him the fire hydrant, or Jalen Warren, a guy who's small in stature, but built like a truck. And he's just tough, loves to run the football, loves to be able to hit people, picks up in protection. When you watch the film looks good. I mean, he picks it up in protection, man. He don't give a shit. I mean, he don't care. I mean, it doesn't matter who he's going against, whether it's a guy 5'10" or a guy 6'10", it don't matter. The guy plays like he's like 6'3". That's what I like about him. He's physical. When you're at that size, you got to be physical. And guess what? There have been numerous running backs that have played really, really well in terms of the NCAA, but more importantly, the NFL. Look at guys, especially to a wide receiver. Look at Tyreek Hill. You had Tyreek Hill. Darren Sproles was like 5'6". Desmond Reed's, 5'8", 5'9". Jaheim White, running back at West Virginia. I think he's potentially going to be their number one running back. He's going to battle with C.J. Donaldson, but he's 5'7". I just think that you either have the talent or you don't. And I think he's got great speed too, but he's physical. And you saw it last year too with Cincinnati in the first half. They ran all over us in the first half. We shut it down in the second half, but too late. What position group do you think is the strongest on the roster? Ooh. That's a great question. The strongest position group. I would say, honestly, I'm going to say, because of the guys they have there and the guys they have returning, I'm going to go linebacker. And here's why. I think Solomon DeShields has shown progression like no other. I think he's done a great job. You saw Jordan Bass, what he was able to do, especially too in the second half of the season and how he played in the Notre Dame game. I thought he did a hell of a job. Brandon George is back again. That's a huge factor. Kyle Lewis has jumped up on the boards. I think he's looked incredible. I think you're going to see, some of the newbies come in. Cam Lindsey, 4-star linebacker out of Aliquippa. I think he's going to get some playing time this year because I think he's that good. I think he's that physical. He can play all three positions. Key Thompson, the transfer linebacker from Ohio, the guy he's just always around the football. You look at the Ohio tape, he's a guy, he's always around it. If he's not tackling the guy, he's having a fumble recovery and an interception. I think that's really big. But when you look overall at the linebacker room from what it was, and I've told people this before, Ryan Manilak does not get enough credit for how well he's done in terms of rebuilding that room. And Johnny Patrician, I've talked to Johnny Patrician about it, and Johnny has put out plenty of tweets about it. The numbers don't lie. I mean, in 2021, they broke records. I mean, for the amount of progression and production they put up. This past year, and Braylon Lovelace, by the way, he's going to be another guy that steps up, and he played well last year. There were some learning opportunities in the season like any other young guy. He made mistakes like any other young guy, but he's another guy who has stood up in this camp and done a hell of a job. So he's another guy. So you're looking at like 6 or 7 guys in the linebacker room. But overall, that room looks just remade. Obviously, Servastier Dennis was a legend in that room, a guy with knowledge, physicality. They call him a light switch because he was able to turn it off and turn it on. When he's off the field, he's a great guy. When he's on the field, you won't like him because he's going to bring the thunder. That's just Servastier Dennis, and that's why he's doing really good with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But I would put really, in second, I would put the DB room. The DB room second on defense. Linebacker, DB, and then the D-line room. I've got questions about the D-line room because, one, we've lost a lot of guys. Dalen Hayes is back, which is really, really good. You love to see that. I think, Nate Matlock is going to be really good this year. Nick James, a 4-star defensive tackle transfer from Indiana. Obviously had great relationships out there. Was a 4-star out of IMG Academy in Florida. Another guy to watch. On the other end, obviously, you're going to have Nakai Johnson, which I think is actually really good for him. Nakai Johnson moves inside. Isaiah Ghost Neal, you'll watch him. Francis Breu will get some looks this year. Jasir Whittington will get some looks this year. Right potential. Those guys are starting to show up in camp. Elliot Donald, we'll see what he's able to do this year. He's showing up so far this camp. Sincere Edwards at defensive end. Nate Temple's back. Bam Bremer's back. There are numerous guys. And then Ajubwe, too. David Ajubwe from the defensive end transfer from the 4-star defensive end from Clemson who transferred in. I just want to see it in person first. I want to see what the level of production looks like. And also, obviously, too, Tim Doust, which I've, heard from numerous players. The players love him, just from what I've been told. So I'm excited to see that room and how that develops. But I'm also interested to see the offensive line. There's a lot of questions right now. It's still early on in camp. I think the offensive line, I think Lyndon Cooper could potentially be the starting center. It still could be Terrence Moore. You look at the guard positions. I think the tackles are already done. You've got Branson Taylor and Ryan Bayer. on each side, bookends of each other that can either play left or right tackle. I think Brenton Taylor will play left tackle for now. And then I almost said Russ Bayer. Love you, Russ. Ryan Bayer will play right tackle. At left guard, it's going to be Brian Jacoby. He comes back from injury from last year. He's a guy that I expect him to take a big step forward this year again. He had a great camp last year before he suffered his injury, which was so disappointing because Pat Narduzzi just talked about how great of a camp he was having. Obviously, Ryan Jacoby came over from Ohio State, transferred in from there. Just a physical specimen, a guy that just looks really good on paper. And just a really good person, too. Just very physical and a veteran guy. I see him at left guard. The questions I have are at center and right guard. If I had to choose today who to put at the center and right guard position, I would put, as of now, I would put Terrence Moore at center with Lyndon Cooper backing up, and I'd put B.J. Williams at right guard. I think B.J. Williams will be, he's a true sophomore. He's got the physical ability. He's a physical specimen. I love what he looks like. And he has shown so much progress from game one of the year to the end of the year. I think he's that good. But the battle between Terrence Moore and Lyndon Cooper, who Lyndon Cooper's the transfer offensive lineman from NC State, that'll be a battle. There's also, from what I've been told, is that Pitt will go out and look to add another offensive lineman through the portal when it opens up after spring. That'll be something to watch. Obviously, Adrian Clem's son. He's a Pine Richland kid. He's transferring from Washington. He's certainly going to get a call. I can tell you that, if they've not already talked. Conversations about that, but I expect them to add a couple more guys maybe through the portal. But guess what? You're also going to see guys leave this team because right now, if my numbers are correct, Pitt is 7 guys over because Carter Johnson, obviously, at the tight end here, just because of numbers-wise, they ended up moving on from him. He hit the transfer portal. Again, we wish him the best. He's been great since he's been here. But there's going to be guys that need to leave because they're 7 over the scholarship limit. So if they're not on the 2 deep, they're probably going to leave. So don't think the sky's falling because they need guys to leave at this point. Before the next question, guys, again, we have got 285 people tuning in right now. And again, I'm so thankful for it. Please, if you have not done so yet, if you're on X, head on over to YouTube. Or if you're on YouTube, it's even easier for you. Go right down below. I think it might be right over here. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. We're almost to 1,000. Because guess what? We're going to be having player interviews coming up here. And you're going to want to see some of these players that we have lined up during spring camp. We're going to be talking about the new offense, the defense. There's going to be some new guys we'll be talking to. But guys that you guys have recently brought up to me. We'll be releasing player interviews. So if you want to get those videos, because they will not be live, if you want those videos, you got to be able to subscribe down below and know when we drop them. And again, guys, the show is sponsored by Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA. Of course, the fake slide Pilsner. Again, a great design, like always, guys. A great design. Again, it supports, again, look at that, Oakland Originals. Obviously, Alliance 412, which is the preferred collective of the University of Pittsburgh. Guys, this stuff certainly does help the University of Pittsburgh. Colonial Beer has such a great selection, whether it's light beers, lagers, your IPAs, but more importantly, obviously, the fake slide Pilsner. If you're supporting Colonial Beer, you're also supporting Alliance 412, which help Pitt stay competitive. That's how these guys are here, whether it's football, basketball, doesn't matter. Blake Hinson obviously came back because of Alliance 412 and the NIL factor of it. If you're not subscribed to Alliance 412, subscribe today. Plenty of different options, from the 1976 option to the $40.12. Or $41.20, the 412 option, which is where I'm at. Plenty of different options. But again, Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA. Go see my friends over there. They're both great pit men. Go over and see those guys today. Support them. Who knows? Maybe you'll see me there whenever I'm there doing a surprise guest appearance. But back to the questions. We got some more here. Let's see here. What player do you think gets drafted first in the draft? I'd have to say I'm going to go MJ Devonshire by first in the draft. I agree about linebacker, a ton of potential. Really excited for the young guys. Yeah, you look at guys like Cam Lindsey. Obviously, let me tell you something. Marcelin, Marceline coming from Florida, he's going to be an absolute stud too. I mean, you looked at how physical he was. Jeremiah Marceline, who was on the verge of being a 4-star, was to some people, I think it was 247. He was a 4-star player, linebacker. He looks damn good. I was happy to see him stick with Pitt and stay on there commitment wise. He was getting looks from obviously the SEC towards the end of his recruitment. Also the Big Ten, Maryland tried grabbing him. I think, a couple SEC teams between Auburn. I think the other one was Arkansas. Was trying to grab him when they were looking to pick him up. That's another one, and of course, you got David Bruton, middle linebacker from New Jersey. I think he looks really good. I just like that room a lot. It's a young group mixed in with some veteran guys as well. Over on X, Stefan, I appreciate it, man. Why did they let Nate Temple come back? That was a head scratcher. So I think right now, when you look at the defensive line, when you look at the depth, okay, one, it was a depth purpose thing, okay, but also, two, he's a veteran. I think when you look overall at the defensive line, there was a number of different guys that you look at it and you say, man, this is a young group. Nate Matlock, he's a veteran guy, but he's just coming on board. Can he be a leader right away? It's questionable. Dayon Hayes, obviously, he's a veteran. Can he be, a leader right away? He's shown it, and that question's been answered, yes. But David Ajubwe from Clemson, young guy. Sincere Edwards, young guy. Bam Breamy's a veteran, but you wanted another veteran there, so you brought in Nate Temple. Nikai Johnson, who is at defensive end now, defensive tackle, young guy. I mean, you're looking at that whole entire defensive line room where there's a lot of young guys on that team. There's a lot of young guys in that room. I think Nate Temple, from what I was told, is that he's a great veteran leader. He's got great leadership in that room. Will he play a lot this year? We'll see. There's plenty of competition in that room. But I think in terms of what leadership looks like, I think it's one of the reasons why he was brought back. But I think from anybody I've talked to, he continues to make strides. I think it's what you want to see. But overall, when you look at the defensive line room, they continually get better. But Nate Temple, I would say for his leadership, he's a veteran. And I think he certainly helps out that room in terms of rotation-wise. Will he be a starter? I don't think so. That's my opinion. I don't think he'll be a starter, but he provides depth for that room, and I think that's what they were truly looking for. Take a couple more questions here. What players do you think transfer in the spring? Good question. I'm interested to see what happens with when you look at the 2 deep. I think there's some guys on there. I'm not going to name specific guys. I don't do that kind of stuff. I'll let you guys use your imagination to figure it out. I will tell you this. If they're not on the 2 deep, probably going to be looked at as a guy that leaves. Just being honest. If they're not on the 2 deep, they're potentially leaving. And they need 7 to 8 guys. Also, too, I'm still watching in terms of what does the defensive line room, the defensive line room I pretty much have locked up, except for maybe a couple guys who are freshmen who potentially leave because Charlie Partridge left. That's still a question. What that looks like. I feel confident about that room and the room staying together. But we do sit here right now, and there's still weeks to go. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I can tell you that, but that'll be something I continually watch because I want to see if those guys stick to Pitt in terms of the freshmen and what they look like. But it's up to Tim Dowse to create those relationships. It's that simple. He needs to create those relationships with the young guys. And what I've been told is it's going very well. But he needs to make those relationships, coach them well, and really provide, truth and tangible evidence that they say, hey, I trust this guy to develop me just like I did with Charlie Partridge. Just my opinion. What is your favorite recruit in this class? That's a tough one. I got Cam Lindsey up there, hometown kid from Aliquippa. I think he's done a hell of a job. They continually play up. They're really a single A school. They were playing in Quad A last year. His tape is just absolutely phenomenal. I think it looks so good. I think Ty Uhas is another guy to take a look at from Pittsburgh Central Catholic. Ryan Laymeyer, tremendous football coach, a dear friend of mine, a great man. Was so happy he got that job at Pittsburgh Central Catholic. They made a great hire. He'll be there for years until someone decides to call him from college football. I think his offensive scheme is that good. It's that well developed. I think he's a college football coach hands down within 10 years, just in my opinion. I think he's that smart. He's got the work ethic. It's just he's got all the intangibles, and he connects well with players. I think he's a home run hitter. Jasir Whittington, 4-star defensive tackle. You could see him get playing time this year. Francis Breu, another guy, Sincere Edwards. I said Jeremiah Marcelin, Cam Lindsey, David Bruton, and I'm blanking. The offensive lineman from Georgia, Caleb Holmes. Caleb Holmes is a guy to watch out for when he gets on campus. Just a freak specimen. I think that him and B.J. Williams will be the future at the guard positions and what they're able to do down the road. Those are two guys to watch. But I'm also interested in Julian Duggar. I think that he is such a tremendous athlete, and I think that he could be so beneficial in this offense because of how Cade Bell runs it. He's just a specimen, at his age and just his football IQ. He's got great footwork, and obviously he had a great quarterback coach when he went into high school. I thought that was incredible. I just want to see him and more in terms of the offense. I want to see him more in camp. I just think he can be such a stud in this offense, whether it's next year or the year after that. He's certainly going to compete this year, that's for sure. But he's just a great athlete. Speed, agility, physicality, arm strength. He got a big arm. You guys got to see the film with his arm. I mean, no, and again, this is bad to say, as a Pitt fan, and obviously I do not like West Virginia, but he's got flashes of Pat White. Just say, hey, people can say what they want, but I'm just being honest, man. Don't like West Virginia, but Pat White was a good football player, man, and Julian Duggar's got some of those flashes. Big arm, fast, physical, is not afraid of contact, and the not afraid of contact kind of looks like Tyler Palko to me. Just the guy was just Pitt tough. Playing the quarterback position, you need to be tough. You need to take hits. Tyler Palko is one of those guys. Had a good arm on him, great football IQ, but loved the physical aspect of football. And as Pat Narduzzi would say, a true football player. He's a football guy. He's an athlete, but a guy that certainly knows the game of football and can play the game. So I'm excited about him. There's so many different guys in this class. I thought this class was just so well brought together, was such a great recruiting class. I think there's some underrated guys. It was good to see Francis Breu stick to the class. Michigan State tried jumping in last second. It was great to have conversations with him, just how much he loves Pitt, how much he loves the defense here. Building a relationship with Tim Dowse now, that's going to be huge. It's a good aspect. It's a great relationship. But overall, it's a good overall class. So there's numerous to them. Well, guys, of course, we are past the hour mark, hour and 12 minutes. I just wanted to go past it because there were so many good questions. If you haven't done so, guys, please subscribe to the channel. Share this with your friends. I'm so appreciative of what you guys do for the channel. So thankful for what you guys do for the channel. This stuff is so much fun because of you. We had over 300 people in here tonight watching the show, the most by far. But the Sunday conversation continues to grow because of, you guessed it, you, not me. That's just great. I bring some information here and there, but the show is great because of you guys and the conversations you guys have, and you guys continue to spread the show. The show is great because of you, hands down, no questions asked. I'm just a guy on the other side of the screen. You guys are the ones that make this fun, guys and girls. There's been plenty of great comments from both, and just beyond thankful for everything that you guys do for the channel. Again, share this with your friends. Share the video. The live stream's always great. Tell them to get involved. We love live questions. We love answering questions. But more importantly, I just love interacting with you. That's the most important thing. Pitt is great, not just because of its sports, not just because of its athletics or its academics. It's because of its people. So, guys, as always, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you guys and to continually bring up great football topics as the spring football season continues on. Spring practice. Pitt will be off this coming week, obviously, with spring camp. Obviously everyone's got fall, the spring break, or wherever they go, Florida, or they stay home, or they stay and continually work out. They continually do that. That'll be certainly something to watch. But they'll be back on Tuesday, not this coming week, but the next week after that. They'll be back on Tuesday, and we'll have another live show next Sunday talking about Pitt football, of course. But maybe we'll open up even more. We'll talk about conference realignment, the ACC, what happens with Pitt, what happens with overall everything in college athletics. Guys and girls, as always and forever, hail to Pitt. I'll see you guys next time, all right? Be good.